Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Getting back to work on the Cobra in this video. As I said in the last one, now we're kind of at the point of trying to get everything back together so I can get this bad boy on the road. Had to laugh. I was one of my prior videos, this is a few videos back, got a comment on it from somebody that they're enjoying the videos as far as the content, good video, good information, but the shooting quality could be better. So I do apologize. As I said, way back when I started this channel in one of my MR2 videos, really not trying to be a professional YouTuber. I'm doing this just more to document all this work I'm doing on these cars for future reference. And if it gets, information out there for somebody else working on these projects, much better for them, that's kind of how I look at it. So that being said, I'll try and be a little bit better about, focusing in and, getting, the best, shots and whatnot as possible. But, like I said, I'm doing this more as a hobby, and it's more for me, just for future reference, and anybody else who can, take the information and run with it. So anyway, that being said, what I'm going to work on to start with is I did receive the fuel gauge. So I now have the matching Cobra fuel gauge to go with the voltage gauge and the water temperature gauge for the three that'll be in the center of the dash for now. So I'm going to go ahead and get this wired in. And with that, I can get the wiring for the lights on the other two wired in as well, get those hooked into the dimmer switch, and I should be able to make sure I have a working fuel gauge, and I should have lights and dimmers on those three, because as this thing sits, there was no lights in any of the other gauges, so I'm kind of going to be without that, as far as the speedometer, tach, and oil pressure go, but at least I'll have them on these three. It's a step in the right direction. So I'm going to get to work on getting this together and getting it wired up, and I'll be back. Old gauge is out. I used small bolt cutters to basically just cut away at the existing gauge, whatever the material is, the plastic, where the screws were holding it in, cut the pieces out as needed, was able to get it loose, and then once I did that, I was able to get the screws and the spacers and the bezel out, because everything was kind of glued in, and I had to mess with it a little bit just to get it to come loose. But now that's all out. Now I can go ahead and start installing the new gauge. Time to check in. As far as the gauges go, I got all of the connections made as far as jumping everything together, soldered with those little solder joints, and then heat shrink tubed. I did power it up and made sure the fuel gauge is working, so we're good there. It does go straight to full where it's supposed to go. As far as the lights go, you can see I've got just some temporary wires hooked up, and I'm actually glad I did this because I wasn't sure if the dimmer switch did matter. It does. So this is the dimmer switch. I think I got it from Period Correct, I think, or it was either Period Correct or Finish Line. I can't remember. But either way, looking at this, the wires coming from the ground to the lights on the gauges need to go to the red wire on the dimmer switch. And then the main ground to the chassis for the switch would be the white wire. So right now I do have the lights on. I'll flip this up so you can see a little better. And nothing is lit up. Give me a minute here, and I will toggle the switch, and you'll see the lights start to come on. I found out very quickly, if you wire it the other way and have it hooked up different, then it won't be a dimmer, it'll just be a constant on. So mental note, if you are using one of these dimmer switches, the ground from the lights needs to go to the red on the switch. The white wire from the switch is the one that would ground to the chassis for the lights. So we're pretty good there. The lights work on it. I'm very happy. And then, as I said, when I fired it up, the gauge went right to full. So it looks like we are good to go there. So I think I'm pretty good with the gauge install for now. One thing I do want to note, I still have to final wire the dimmer switch in, obviously. I want to wait until I find the right ground location for it. But I did on the power and the ground for the gauges right here, I did cap off and leave myself a couple leads for when I add the other two gauges on this side. And I'm doing the same thing with the light portion. I have a capped off power for the light, and then when I do the final hookup of the ground, I'll do the same thing, have a capped off ground. So that way when the other two gauges are ordered, I can go ahead and seamlessly install those. So that's it as far as the gauges for now. Do have a couple other things I want to do before I put the dash back in. I was thinking, similar to how I put the bracket in here for the vent, I've got a bunch of the little scrap pieces of 90-degree aluminum. I was actually thinking of back here in the center area, below this duct, maybe putting the hazard switch up there on one of those 90 degrees. And then for the heat system, there is a dial switch for adjusting from defrost to floor. It's like a 4-position switch, and I don't have a space for that in the dash currently because it wouldn't fit as far as, the look that I'm going for. So I'm thinking about putting that there as well. So probably gonna do that next portion of the video. And then finally, I have the kill switch that I'm thinking about mounting under the dash in a similar position, or up here on the frame or something like that. That way I can have those a little bit easier or more easily accessible. I was originally gonna just have them all down like on the fuse box bracket, but I think this will be a little bit better instead of trying to reach down underneath the steering column to find them. So we'll see. I'm gonna think about it a little bit, and then I will start messing around with those things. All right, next day. As I said at the end of the last clip, I'm thinking before I put the dash in, I want to try and figure out a couple of ways to mount some of these few little switches that are not in the dash. So what we have here, the toggle is going to be my hazard switch. That's the dual pole, dual throw, whatever that stands for. I forget off the top of my head. But it's got the four connection points to connect to the turn signals and the power from the relay, or the flasher. So we've got that. And then the knob switch here, this is the one that is part of the heat system that basically is a multi-position switch that determines the variance of floor versus defrost vent. So it basically opens up the flap door for the heater at different stages. So have those switches that I'm going to mount. I had this spare piece of aluminum laying around. The hole that's in there, I'm going to drill that one out a little bit, and that'll be the one for the toggle switch. And then I can put the rotary switch next to it and go ahead and mount this up on the frame cross beam, the big I think it's a 3-inch square tube that goes side to side. I'll put it on top of that so it's not very visible, but you should be able to reach it by tucking your hand under the dash. As these are two switches that aren't going to be used very often, I'll probably keep the heat setting at midpoint, especially being that I don't have defrost hooked up right now. It's all pretty much going to be coming out the bottom anyway. And then the toggle switch is just for the 4-way hazards. All right, after a little bit of drilling, here's the final result. The two switches are mounted in the bracket. I'm going to go ahead and get this in the car. Before I go ahead and get that switch bracket installed, I just wanted to show you that I got the ground wires hooked up to the dimmer switch as I was describing yesterday when I hooked up the alligator clips just to try and find the right polarity and whatnot. So again, I've got the black wire coming from, the white wire off of the dimmer switch is what grounds to the chassis. The red wire off the dimmer switch is what goes to the ground on the light. So, and as you can also see, I did go ahead and leave an open ground wire for the future for when I add additional gauges. And here's the final result of the mounting of that little switch bracket. You can see the hazards are there, as well as the rotary knob for the heat. And this, like I said, will be tucked up behind the dash, so it shouldn't be visible once the dash is properly in place. Did test this off, on, and come around back. And we have 4 ways that are working. So we are good to go there. Hazards work. Only thing is there's no light on the dash for when they're on, but I'm really not too worried about that. Because if I were to tie it into the existing light, I know you get some diodes and whatnot to avoid any backflow, but I didn't want to have to worry about always having 4 ways anytime I turned on the turn signals. So not too worried about it. Highly doubt I'll use those very often, but at least I have the option if needed. So that being said, I think this is where I'm going to end this video. I know it's kind of a short one, but I got some other stuff to get done today. Probably my last video for a week or so. I'm really tied up the next week and probably won't be able to get to the car. So hope you enjoy what you're seeing in this. Hope you learned something from it. There will be more to come on this car, probably about a week or so. Hopefully I'll get the dash in at that point in time, and then it's going to be just cleaning up and buttoning up the wheel wells as far as cleaning up some of the wiring, getting the brake lights or brake hoses more securely mounted, and a few other little things, and then we can get this thing on the road. So again, if you like what you're seeing, please like, please subscribe, please hit the notification button because there's definitely going to be more to come. Thank you for watching and have a great day.